welcome back to only on the YouTube channel this time. I didn't manage to get the Mansfield chat in time for the regular edition of the podcast, but we do play Mansfield on Sunday, a place and a team that have played really well against us, even though we maybe have got some of the results. I'm thinking back to the game earlier in the season, that was also on TV, where Wrexham were, I think, second best on shots, passes, tackles, fouls, whatever you want to think of, and still won 1-0 thanks to Ryan Barnett's goal. So a repeat on Sunday would be much appreciated, which is why I've got on Craig from Mansfield Matters to say what has been going on with the Stags. Craig, what's happening?
I think it's what we expected, to be fair, Nathan. It's, we got promoted alongside yourselves last year, and I think obviously the difference with us is we've not really invested in the squad too much in the summer, and we are where we expected to be. Like I said to you earlier in the season, the main objective for Mansfield Town this season was to finish fifth from bottom and just avoid relegation, and anything above that would be a massive overachievement. We're well on course for doing that, but at the moment, given our form and given our injuries, we're also very much in danger of slipping into that bottom four with a few more bad results. So it's very tentative at the moment. It's not a great time to be a Stags fan, but really, when you strip it back, it is what we expected to happen at some stage this season. So we'll wait and see what happens on Sunday rather. Honestly, you lot changing the game, disgraceful, messing up my weekend and messing up my brain. But do you know what? At the moment, everybody expects Mansfield to get beat. In fact, everyone expects Wrexham to come and absolutely turn us over. And that's where Mansfield perform the best, when there's no pressure on them whatsoever. So I'm quite looking forward to it in a quite sadistic way.
I remember you saying that earlier in the season when we spoke, and it was kind of, just want to finish safe, and I actually didn't really believe you at the time. You were doing well. You were sort of in and around the playoff places, if not in there. I can't really fully remember exactly the positions, but you were going well. Lee Gregory was scoring goals for fun. Will Evans looked like he was really progressing quite well. And as I said, you've really matched up quite well against us in the last few seasons. Regardless of how the results have gone, it's always been fairly close. The games. Would you say that you were overachieving at the start of the season, and now this is the mean, or is this a bit worse than you thought, and kind of maybe you thought you'd be a little bit higher up with the squad you've built?
I think it's slightly worse than what we thought it would be, but I think that is because of the sequence. If we were where we are now, based on the entirety of the season and losing games here and there, sort of like one loss in 3, for example, and it would have measured itself out that way, I don't think we'd be as bothered. But if you look at our run of form, we lost basically, 6-7 in a row, drew at Blackpool and then lost again on Tuesday night at home to Lincoln. Because all of those defeats have been squeezed in one tight period, I think that makes it a lot worse than what it is. In terms of the start of the season, yeah, we were massively overachieving, and that is all down to momentum from the previous season. You've seen it yourselves probably if you sit back and analyse it. You had that bounce from going up. The only difference is you've got the bodies within your dressing room to be able to carry that through. We haven't. You look at our back line, for example, in the previous game. We started with 3 centre-backs. Only one of them was under the age of 30. We finished, all 3 of those centre-backs, by the way, went off injured. We finished with a back 4 with not one player under the age of 33. So that says a lot about where we are. And it's funny when you sort of say there that you perhaps thought that I was maybe being a little bit coy or whatever in terms of what I said earlier in the season. No, I was being a realist, and it's the amount of people when I've gone on their podcast, or whenever any of the guys have gone on their podcast the second time around for the reverse fixture at this time of year, and who've gone, now actually no, what you said makes sense, is funny, because I get why people thought we were where we were and that we were perhaps being a little bit coy, but we really weren't. We knew Nigel Clough, we knew this squad, we knew there wouldn't be investment, and we ultimately knew that we haven't got the energy, we haven't got the legs to see us through, and it's being proved now. You throw injuries into that mixing bowl as well, and it's a recipe for absolute disaster. You mentioned Lee Gregory there. We ain't seen him again this season. Doubtful we'll ever see him in a Mansfield shirt again. Again, there's so many other key players in there. Desh Elijah, or Dave as we refer to him on the pod. Vital at the centre-back for us. Been injured, and guess when that corresponds to? Oh yeah, when we started losing in this terrible run of form. So, these things do go hand in hand, and unfortunately it's becoming a little bit toxic at the moment. But it is what it is. We are where we are, and ultimately, will we get over the line? Yes, but we'll stumble and we'll probably have some grazes and some bruises to go along with it. There'll be some collateral damage.
Lincoln, good team, and as bad as it is to lose at home 3-0, they are a good team. If Wrexham go there and get the result that I want rather than you do, that no one would look down on Mansfield for that result. But I'm thinking back to earlier this month when you lost at home to Northampton. Was that where maybe the alarm bells were ringing for some fans, or has there not really been that one result that you thought was really, really bad?
I think realistically, they were ringing a lot earlier than that. The fact is we weren't good enough. If you look back to earlier on in the season, November time, we went on a run where we didn't win in 5 games. We barely registered a shot on target in those games. But for some reason, we were playing well and we were creating sort of half chances and we were very much in the game. It was only like little things like last-minute winners or questionable decisions from Hiram Boateng in terms of getting himself sent off, etc., that have sort of cost us and had those games. But that probably masked the fact and put some masking tape over the cracks a little bit, the fact that we were performing in those games a little bit. We then went on a little bit of a run over the Christmas period, and which sort of gave us that little bit of hope and a little bit of boost. But as soon as the performances weren't there, as soon as you could see in games that we couldn't get past 60 minutes, the alarm bells started ringing. For me, it was Reading away, sort of at the back end of the last calendar year. Sort of, I think it was maybe 29th of December, the last game of the calendar year. We were playing quite well in that game, but after 60 minutes, we looked absolutely knackered. We looked dead on our feet. We couldn't run. We couldn't string passes together. We were starting to blame each other. And I remember turning to Nick and to Clive and to Big Tone, who goes with us, our little sort of away group, and saying, there's something not quite right here and we're going to get exploited more often than not in the next few games, and was proved right. And the run that we've been on since has been absolutely disastrous. And you just think, if you watch all of our games back, the first 10, 20 minutes we play really, really well. But after that point, it's like the light goes out and we're playing in complete darkness and we just absolutely tumble. Against Lincoln, we played really well for 20 minutes and perhaps should have been 1 or 2-0 up. We didn't do it. We conceded a corner, and unfortunately, we came up against the best team statistically for attacking set pieces in the division this year. And, they scored a goal from it, and then confidence went down, went through the floor, atmosphere went through the floor, and that was it. And then the second half, Sam Kluka's fluky corner into the top corner over Christy Pym, who I think has shrunk in size. I think he's about 2 foot now. Just couldn't jump for it. Poor goalkeeping error. But it's these things which add up, and we're just knackered. We've got nothing on the bench. We've got nothing in reserve. We've just got nothing there. And I think it's just an accumulation of all of that at the minute. And unfortunately, as well as I do, you've been watching Wrexham well before the documentary film crew rolled into town, and as well as I do that when a bad run creeps into your dressing room, it's hard to get out of it. You've perhaps been quite fortunate over the last 4 years that you've not really had a bad run of form, and the expectation is there. But it's going to hit at some point. It probably hit next year when you're in the Championship and you watch what happens. And unfortunately, we're feeling the effects of that at Mansfield at the minute, and it's all up in the air about what we do for our future.
Yeah, it can feel like it just washes over you, and there's no, you sort of gasping for air at times, because you just lose game after game, and it's Saturday, Tuesday, and then maybe you get knocked out of a cup on the way, and there's very little light amid the darkness, as you say. One of Wrexham's problems, and this will be interesting to see on Sunday, because again, League One, I think, has shown that any team can beat anyone. I didn't have Northampton beating Huddersfield recently. That Mansfield could quite conceivably put in one of their best performances in months, beat Wrexham, and I don't think it would be the most shocking thing ever. One of Wrexham's big problems I'm interested to see on Sunday has been the midfield struggling to get the ball to the strikers. So you spent big money, 2 million-ish on Sam Smith. Jay Rodriguez is coming on big wages. And even if you go beyond that, you spent a lot of money on Mo Fowler, who won't feature, Stephen Fletcher's ex-Premier League. Jack Marriott's obviously had pedigree in the Championship. But they're struggling to get the ball. And from what I remember about Mansfield's setup, maybe going 5 across the midfield, similarly to us with wing-backs, it'll be interesting to see if you can get a grip on that area. Because I'm sure Nigel Clough and his staff will have watched that Matty James, that George Dobson, it's industrious without being super creative, especially with Elliot Lee being sidelined as he recovers from his car crash. So, I mean, you could say this every week, couldn't you? The midfield battle is really key. But having watched Wrexham lose to Leyton Orient and watched Wrexham lose to Stevenage, it's really curious that was the area where we felt like we had a massive gaping hole. So I'd be interested if with your midfielders, whoever is fit and available, whether you feel like that is an area that maybe you could take and that might change the fortune of the game.
I think you've just said it there. It's whoever's fit and available. Unfortunately, Mansfield do not have that luxury at the moment. It literally is a count upon the day of the game to say who can get through 45 minutes, who can get through 60 minutes, who can get through 90, and trying to plan subs that way. And lineup-wise, when we've got everybody fit and available, I do still think that back five or back three, whichever way you want to look at it, the wing-back system works really well for us at this level, but it relies on everybody being fit. There is a very good chance that on Sunday, our centre-back pairing will be Lucas Akins and Jordan Bowery, who are essentially two strikers. And, Jordan Bowery, bless him, is converted to a defender over the last couple of seasons. And I now do class him as a defender. And I actually think he's quite good in that position. But to think that there's a real possibility that the centre-back pairing could be Akins and Bowery, who were a former strike partnership 3 years ago, is scary. And in terms of midfield, we're just plugging the gap with whoever's fit and available. And it's so for me, it's more about Mansfield managing damage limitation and sort of trying to be a little bit defensive and try and stopping Wrexham playing and things like that, and trying to maybe sneak an early goal. But I don't know. I really, at the moment, struggle to look at anything tactically, anything in terms of individual players who can get through, because you just know that someone's going to pull up injured or someone's going to get a red card or whatever, because we're just having all of this look. So for me, it's less about that midfield battle, and it's more about confidence, and it's more about from the fans as well, because there'll be a great atmosphere, especially from you guys. I think we'll try and match it, but if we're not putting the performance there, and perhaps if we don't score within, the first 10, 20 minutes, it will drop. And then if you score, we might as well just go home.
I was thinking in terms of the Leyton Orient defeat we had the other night, which we've spoken on the podcast this week about the atmosphere and all the issues that came to light from that game. What struck me in that game was that the best players for Leyton Orient were loan players from Premier League clubs. It's something that Wrexham typically don't do. Arthur Okonkwo was an anomaly there who went on later to sign. You've got, is it Caelan Vickers? Caden Vickers from
Caelan Vickers, yeah.
Caelan Vickers from Brighton. And I'm just curious, again, just because we don't see much use of the loan market at Wrexham, which is frustrating on my behalf for someone who covers the Premier League. How's he got on? Will he play on Sunday in place of Gregory? And is he a danger man, or is he still quite raw and fresh?
Well, if he plays to Gregory, I'll be very concerned, considering Gregory's out for the season and in the hospital wing. However, some of our passing, I wouldn't put it past us. No, he has been an absolute breath of fresh air. And to be honest, up until this season, Mansfield don't do that either, which I know we've not really got time to delve into it, but it's a major concern for me that we're looking at the loan market rather than what we've done historically, which is build for the future and build for next season. You look at 2 seasons ago when we brought in Davies Keeler-Dunn, a few other, Alfie Kilgore, a few others in that January window. That was building for the next season where we went on to get promoted. We did that a little bit last January as well in terms of bolstering it and looking for this year. We tried to sign Lee Gregory then, and etc. etc. We've not done that this year. We've just got players in on loan. And I don't think, unless Nigel Clough didn't have his rant post Shrewsbury when we threw away a 1-goal lead against 10 men, if he did not had that rant, we wouldn't have signed Vickers or Jordan Rhodes. Jordan Rhodes I don't look at because he's, again, over 30. He's typical Clough player. And if we're being honest, he's past it and he hasn't really got it. He needs to step up his game and pretty damn quick. Caelan Vickers is a breath of fresh air. He's the attacking movement and the spark that we need. When he gets on the ball, he drives us forward. But again, he hasn't got the people behind him giving him the ball. And, because we're relying so heavily on him at the moment because we've got nobody else fit, he's now starting to feel it. So you've looked in the last couple of games, actually, it's been brought off after 70, 75, 80 minutes because we need to try and wrap him up. And that becomes a concern because you need him in the last 10 minutes of the game when you're chasing the game. We just don't have it anymore. And yeah, it's a bit of a concern for us at the minute, but he's been bright.
The last question, I'm not going to ask you for a prediction because we've spoken many times on the podcast and I know you're not a man for predictions, but I just had a quick look at the table. You're actually a little bit higher up than I thought. You're there in 15th. If I'm looking at the teams below Mansfield, Cambridge have just brought back Neil Harris. Shrewsbury have obviously got Gareth Ainsworth, who's a kind of veteran at the level.
They'll stay up. They will stay up under him. They'll stay up.
But Burton have just gone and signed Anthony Ford, who got released by Wrexham, and they've got Bodvarsson, and I think they're under what's his name.
Gary Bowyer.
Thank you very much, Gary Bowyer. Northampton obviously trying something new with Kevin Nolan. Peterborough have been one of the biggest flops of the season compared to where I thought they would be, and people thought. Bristol Rovers have had a bit of a revival under their new manager. Exeter, I'm not really sure, and I watched Wigan recently in the FA Cup against Fulham. I thought they looked bright, but they were quite poor against Stockport the other day. Are you confident that there's enough worse teams below Mansfield, or are you more confident that you will figure out a bit of form? What are you more confident in? Do you think that there'll be worse teams than you, or that you'll figure it out?
All I'll say is that the Burton game a week on Saturday is the biggest game of the season. We have to beat them. If we don't beat them, we're relegated. It's as simple as that. We're in free fall at the moment. We need to get some players back. I'm confident enough in Clough that we will stumble over the line, but my God, is it going to be hard work at the minute? And I really don't see where the next win's coming from. We need some players back quickly. We need some energy. We need some confidence in that side, and I don't see where it's coming from in terms of players inspiring each other, the manager inspiring them, fans being inspiring them. So for me, in my heart, we will stay up because that's the objective which we set out to do, and Nigel Clough will do everything in his power to ensure that we do. But it relies heavily on what we do in the next 3 games or so. We have to beat Burton. We have to keep a buffer on them. If we can keep a buffer on them, we'll be all right. But if we don't, we've just given, what we've done is said to that bottom 4, this team are in absolute free fall. Go and rob their house and go and absolutely destroy them.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.